Call this meeting to order of the Leominster Conservation Commission. It is March 26th at 6 p.m. Excuse me. So the first item is a continued hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended. There will be a public hearing to consider an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation by Matthew Marrow, environmental consultant, to evaluate the boundaries of an area subject to the Wetlands Protection Act at 200 Tanzio Road, map 320, lot 2, DEP file number 199-1079. Angela, do you have an update on that?
Yes, Mr. Morrow has decided to withdraw the DEP number and refile, just to relieve some of the quorum issues. So that will be on the next meeting on April 9th.
Okay, we should probably vote to accept that withdrawal request. Anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the withdrawal request of Matt Morrow for 200 Tanzio Road, DEP number 199-1079.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
All those in favor? All right. Next item is pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended. There will be a public hearing to consider a notice of intent for Mr. Karuki, prepared by Whitman and Bingham, for the construction of a single-family house with associated site grading, driveway, and utilities to service the house. A portion of the work is proposed within a wetland resource area. This project requires a wetland crossing and wetland replication. Address is 138 Old Tavern Road, DEP file number 199-1077, and this is a continued hearing. Do you have an update on this one?
They just requested a continuance.
Okay, so the applicant has requested a continuance for that, and our next meeting will be April 9th at 6 p.m. We continue to that date and time. Okay, we have new hearings now. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, there will be a public hearing to consider a notice of intent for James Aris for the development of a single-family residential house lot within the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. Address Lot 3, Mary Ave Extension, map 419, lot 23. Someone here representing the applicant tonight?
Yes. This guy. I'll go in. Frank Larry in the way. Oh, that's just for a second. Sorry.
No, I'm so glad I'm back here.
Everyone see that okay? Should I turn it?
Okay.
My name is Anthony Cleves. I'm with Whitman and Bingham Associates here on behalf of the applicant and owner, James Exaris. I made some 11 by 17s of this color plan for you. That is helpful. These are copies of the certified. So we're before you tonight for a proposed 3-lot subdivision. We're calling it Mary Ave Extension. To familiarize yourselves with the area, we have Main Street, which is also Route 13 at the bottom of the page. Excuse me. Heading north, we'll be going to the left on the plan, heading this way. Then we have Bella Villa that comes down. Mary Ave takes a left. Mary Ave continues. Paper Street of Mary Ave here, and then Penny Lane continues down to a dead end. What we're proposing to do is extend Mary Ave with a little cul-de-sac for 3 single-family residential house lots. There are wetlands that have been delineated. in the rear of the development here. Not shown on this plan, but this property continues much further out, which we're just designating that as just going to be open space. I'm determining exactly who were to get that, but I'm not planning any development on that 2.5 acres out to the rear there. Excuse me. In purple, I've delineated a wetland line that we flagged, which is here. And then also what we delineated as an isolated wetland area off on the right side of the plan, on the south side of the property. And then in orange, I've highlighted the 100-foot buffer zone in that. So again, coming with a short road, cul-de-sac, 3 lots. The portion that's in the buffer zone shown here, we have 1 house lot here, and then the stormwater system to the rear. The development proposed to be serviced by municipal water, sewer. Water is planned on being extended from Mary Ave into the property. And the sewer is proposed to have 3 individual pump systems pumping up through an easement and tying into the sewer system in Main Street. In the stormwater system, typical conventional catch basin to manhole configuration, couple catch basins tying into a manhole, and then discharging to a infiltration stormwater basin to the rear, with an eventual discharge to the rear of this developed area. Brief overview. Any questions or comments? Can we talk about the sidewalk?
Do you have any questions?
I do just have one, and I understand sometimes this is a property access issue. But do you have any indication of over on this, what, is it the north side? Over here, yeah. How the wetland line kind of stops? Do you know, does it continue
No, there's
out to the west, or?
up this way?
Yeah.
Nope, on our delineation, no, we didn't feel as though it continued up. There's some pipes that discharge here from foundation drain to this house to like a man-made riprap channel. That's kind of where we delineated it
Okay.
beginning. But I believe there'll be some further discussion on that as we continue on the meeting.
Yes. Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, may I? So doing some research on the property, I found this plan here under Coleman Ave, which is, Penny Lane is also known as Coleman Ave.
Okay.
For the property that abuts right there, I think it's 9 Penny Lane. And on this plan here, it shows the wetlands behind that home. And you know, edge of wetlands flag where theirs goes way up past, pretty close to where the road was.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you guys had access to this file.
I haven't seen
Or,
it.
just so I think this kind of shows what we saw on the site visit, that there was
Sure.
some obligate species in there.
There's a house here now.
Actually, that house was built in 2016. Occupancy permit was issued in November of 2016. The house is basically exactly where that house is.
No.
Seems, according to the file that I pulled from the building department. It's a slightly different configuration
Oh, okay.
of the home, but it was also done by Whitnam and Bingham.
Nancy, do you mind sliding that this way?
Sorry. As you can see that on this plan, there's no wetlands delineated at the back of the property.
So the existing house is here.
Yeah, I believe conservation at the time had walked that, from what I understand.
Not from my conversations with them, there was no notification to the Conservation Commission at the time.
Through the building permit process, there was no notification.
Nope, they don't require a sign off from Conservation Building Department, unless, the plans specifically say there's wetlands on them. And I believe there's a note on that plan that says, sorry, Brad. Contractors should be aware of the responsibility to the Wetland Protection Act. A wetland evaluation was not performed on the lot.
So does that have an address, this plan here?
I think it's a proposed lot because that house was never built, but it seems
This one here?
that house was built. That's 9 Penny
This
Lane.
one.
The one on the
I
92
believe
plan.
this one is
There's a
is
house
the
down
next
here
house
too.
down.
Yeah, I think so.
That's the next house down. I believe that house for that plan is here. The house here.
It doesn't match the
Here's the,
plans.
here's the driveway. Here, so that plan, that road continues on. So you see how this shows this wetlands here?
The roads.
This road goes to here. You can kind of see it on the focus on this plan. It's tough to see. I'll see if I have a bigger one, but the road, well, maybe it goes not quite that far, but there's another house further down. I know because I unfortunately turned around in the driveway as you get further down. And this house is on either side
Yeah,
as well.
two houses on the side of here.
Because if this is the house, that's right here, which I don't think it is. That plan shows the road ending here, if that's that house. And the road continues down to
At this
here.
time, I don't believe that road was made.
Right, that plan does not show that road existing. This plan shows a road being created.
Yeah.
Wetlands here, this was all earth. This plan shows the road ending at basically Mary Ave and Bella Villa. Right here. Looks like at the time of that plan, that's what the existing condition of the road ended here. And that plan, it looks like it extended it, if it was actually built in accordance with that plan, to about here. And then after that, it looks like this road continued on, at least down on that location. So probably the plans, even newer than that, extending that road, we might guess.
So the aerial is showing that the road ends essentially at that second house driveway.
Which may be,
Which you showed on the plan.
which
I
may
think you
be
showed
this
that
house.
driveway.
This may be the second house. I think that might be a little bit of the confusion.
You show the driveway apron right there,
Here?
correct? Yeah, so the road.
It ends right
you're
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying, if that house, I don't think that house is this one. I think if anything, that house would be a house here, or further down, or maybe it wasn't built like that. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. Take a look at the intersection of Mary
Right.
Ave and Bella. Bella, right here, Anthony. I'm looking at this intersection right here, and I'm looking at that house right there.
Yeah.
So you're saying this house is here,
Yes.
right in the middle of this wetland?
Right, according to that plan, yeah.
And then the house that you have on there is this one.
Nope, this house is here. That
There's another
house
house.
is down here. This property here, the assessors have Ruth Casey, 15 Penny Lane.
So why isn't that house on your plan?
We didn't locate it down, we didn't go on their property and locate their land.
Huh. Well, that's something. And did you say, Anthony, that there are drains coming from the house that you have located on that plan?
There's a roof drain that comes out here and actually dumps onto our property.
Yeah.
It just goes onto our property line. And there's a drain here, and another drain that comes down this way. This appears to come from foundation drain, I'm assuming. This one, it looks like it probably comes from a roof drain. There's a roof, or gutters here, with a downspout in that corner, so that appears to come from the gutter system.
Did you guys do a sidewalk on this?
This is Sunday. He's like,
So just scaling that plan and comparing to the location that plan shows, the first portion of the house. When I scale on this plan, it comes to here. So if that house was built according to that plan or similar to it, that house is big. And then the end of the road, let's see, on this plan. About 290 feet. Here, which the driveway is further and the road stops a little further than that, so it appears as though the road that was built is longer than what that plan would show. I think I'm just scaling to get an idea of comparison.
So, my, I think, initial opinion is still a little bit confusing because even if that house, just the plans don't really match up. So even if that house is further down, and I realize that plan was, created 20 years ago, but there's a significant amount of wetlands shown on that plan that aren't shown here. So even if this house is further down, the original delineations still show the wetland coming.
Right, I mean, so
further up, and so either way, I mean, both of these
sorry to interrupt, I mean, so
houses would be
didn't know
within
that plan.
wetlands.
We looked at the site as it is today. Didn't know enough to look for a plan like this back 27 years ago. Which delineations are good for 3 years, so we went with what we saw on site at the time we did the delineation. So that's what we based this on. And there was discussion on the site walk, which members that were there can talk about that, but we based on what we saw at the time of delineation, not what was on a plan 27 years ago.
And when was this delineated?
January, February of this year. Okay.
It was re-examined January, February. It was originally delineated in 16, I think.
The delineation in 2016?
Yeah, we had hired Matt Morrow in 2016, and then we had it this winter.
Any other questions? Can we talk about the sidewalk for a little bit then? So your the plan you shows a BBW with flag numbers. Off property there is a isolated wetland that's shown that doesn't have flag numbers. How is that located?
We located those flags, I think in 2016.
So this area was flagged in 2016?
Matt, is that correct? Is that what you recall? And then you double checked it in January, February?
I don't recall. I'd have to look at my notes. That was a while ago.
Was there any filing of determination with the commission on that particular wetland?
No.
Okay. So I guess being I'm the only one that was on the site walk that's present tonight, I just want to discuss what I think of my findings out there. So when I walk the property, it looks to me like part of your projects within what I would consider a wetland today, being the cul-de-sac as well as one of those houses is in the driveway, so I guess lot 3, I think it is. Yep.
Yeah.
As well as I've got concerns about the jurisdiction of what's being labeled as an isolated wetland here, and whether or not that's jurisdictional. I think that needs to be investigated more. I think it also may come onto the property that you're proposing work on as well. When I look through all the aerials, the historic aerials for that site, you clearly see what's kind of first brings your attention to the possible wet meadow. One area is where that cul-de-sac is, and another area is down in the corner by the tree line, adjacent and connecting to what's being shown as an isolated wetland. I also saw what could be, and it's kind of borderline, is what may be a channel coming out of that, which would make it a jurisdictional wetland at that point. I think
This one here?
right. So I think at a minimum, that area needs a lot more investigation. I have no idea what happens as you head, as you north arrow, but as you head off,
East?
No, that part we could see because it comes back onto the property, but as you head, so south, I guess.
This way?
Yep. Yeah, in that area there.
Onto this people, onto the Zayas property?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe there's an outlet there or something else happening, but it really needs further look at to see if it's jurisdictional. And I think once the ground's a little bit more suitable, like that particular area, I couldn't really auger in, although I did get to poke around quite a bit in the vicinity of Lot 3 in that.
Yeah, this is in the shade, so
Yeah.
a little frozen ground still, maybe.
And also, the plan we saw before us on the historic file, as I was out there on Sunday, it looks to me like that wetland's there's even more wetlands than what was shown on that. So it showed it for a little bit of a distance behind that lot, which I guess is, I think it's 9 Penny Lane. There's no house number. Yeah, I think that was.
This is 11.
That's 11?
Well, this is 11, this is 9.
Okay.
It's a combined lot to make the house, yeah. So this is 11, this is 9, but it's one lot.
Okay. So as you look on the subdivision property behind it, the historical plan shows some wetlands there, but I think there's even more now than what's shown on that plan from 92.
Like coming into this,
Yep.
into this area here.
Yeah. So at least from my perspective, I think a lot more work needs to be done in terms of trying to delineate that and getting the commission to agree on a line before we get too far along with taking a look at the project design.
Yeah, I agree with that, absolutely. If there is a concern with the delineation, it seems to make sense to talk about the project, because that would change if the delineation would change.
And one thing I do want to comment on too, looking at the historical photos, there's quite a bit of mowing out there, and certainly the regs allow continued historical mowing of the wet meadow. But for the purpose of our review, it would be beneficial to not mow it just so that we can see what vegetation pops. It's going to be a wetland whether or not it's mowed or you let it grow wild. But it's gonna help aid our review, taking a look at the veg if it's not, an inch long. So I would suggest just not touching it as we go through this process, and if they want to mow it after that, then that's allowed under the regs.
Matt, do you want us to look at it some more? I mean, I think do we want to take a look at it, or we feel confident with what we have for now? Do you want to?
No, I'd like to get permission from the abutting property owner to be able to access the property, carry out the commission's wishes. I don't have a problem re-examining that at all. Be more than happy to look at it.
How about this area here? With that little depression,
I'd like to take some time to study the plans that Angela was pulling out. Because I mean, it was 27 years ago, but I vaguely remember when those houses down at the bottom of that road were built. And that was back in the early to mid-90s.
July 9th, 1992. Yeah, so if you want to come by and look at some of the documents.
Absolutely.
else have any other questions or comments? All right, I'm going to open up to the public. Anybody in the public like to speak on behalf of this notice of intent?
Yeah, my name's John Andonian. I'm actually the abutting property 9 and 11 Penny Lane. I know that when you were out there, I'm sure you saw at that property line was quite damp. Actually, I think there was some puddling at that point. But water, and in 2016, or actually just into 2017, our basement flooded with excess water and has still had retaining water throughout that. That I think probably about where that orange line is to the end of the property, which has been basically soaking wet since then. So I think we're seeing the water sort of transition over into the property, so that whole section is wet. And if I recall correctly, there's actually a stone, what looks like underwater, almost like a manhole cover on the other side of the property as well. So I don't know if that's originally to catch water or somehow divert it. But essentially, basically there's notice of wet ground and puddling ground on both sides of the property line.
Okay, I have a follow-up question for you. So when you say flooding, are you talking about your yard flooding or basement flooding, or?
Well, in January of 2017, the basement flooded, which was 3 or 4 months after we took ownership. But now, basically, that has been remedied. They put some underwater drain, which I think leads to the essentially sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like a stone pit that essentially is a collection of water to sort of underground drain that, to drain that water. But now, since there's no water going into the property, it's into the house itself or into the basement. It's all puddling within the yard. So between the house and the tree line.
So it's puddling within your yard?
Correct. And I have pictures and documentation that I can share if that's necessary, or if you do another sidewalk. It's now that the snow's melted, it's still visibly wet and puddled on my property.
If I can ask another follow-up question. So you said the basement flooded in 2017?
Correct.
Yeah. Have you noticed, I guess, puddling in the yard during specific times of the year, or is it sort of like a constant thing that you're doing?
It's constant. So I mean, even in last summer's 90-degree, no rain for 2 weeks, I still had puddles of water.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was sent communications from a gentleman who was unable to be here tonight. He wanted me to read it into the meeting.
Okay.
So this is from David Woodford. Dear Mr. Chbosky, I am unable to attend the meeting of the Leominster Conservation Commission to be held on March 26th due to a previous commitment. However, I would like my written comments to be read at the meeting. As an abutter to the proposed project for a 3-home subdivision on Mary Avenue Extension by developer James Zaris, I am opposed to this project. The project proposes to build a catch basin which will exist completely within the wetland buffer zone in an area that is now almost completely wooded. This woodland buffer zone protects the sensitive wetland areas that exist in the area behind my home and the homes of my neighbors. This wooded buffer zone helps to mitigate excess runoff, which would further expand the wetland area behind our homes. This woodland and the wetland provide habitat for many animals that live in this urban woodland, such as deer, moose, owls, hawks, occasionally a bear, as well as many smaller species. In addition to disrupting the habitat of these many animals, further expansion of the wetlands along with this catch basin will increase the mosquito population of the area with more standing water for developing mosquito eggs. More mosquitoes will increase the potential for mosquito-borne illnesses such as West Nile virus and Eastern equine encephalitis. Additionally, the catch basin will require periodic maintenance according to the engineering plans, at least 4 times a year, including cleaning the catch basin grate of organic debris and removal of sand and accumulated organic matter, and most likely trash. If more than 50% of the total volume has been filled, I have serious concerns that this catch basin will become filled with organic and inorganic debris. This will most likely cause more water than presently draining into the wetland to fill this area, regardless of what the engineering plans state. This will result in many of the trees dying and or falling over as their root systems become saturated. The basin will also require inspection and maintenance whenever more than 1 inch of rainfall occurs in a storm. Maintenance of the catch basin is to be the responsibility of the city of Leominster. If the city accepts ownership of the roadway, associated utilities of the subdivision, this seems to be an unnecessary burden to be placed upon the city and its taxpayers. I request that the Conservation Commission deny this request to alter the buffer zone and the wetlands in this area. A further point is that the developer has shown a blatant disregard for the following environmental and safety regulations. In 2011, he was fined $100,000 for improperly removing asbestos from an industrial building in the city. In 2012, he was fined $200,000 for improperly removing timber from a project site, including from a protected wetlands and buffer zone. Why would we think he would build and monitor this project properly? Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, David A. Woodford, 15 Quail Run, Leominster, Massachusetts.
Would you like me to comment on some of that, please? I think the gentleman is confusing some of the terminology on the stormwater system. Kept referring to catch basin, and one of the things he mentioned on the cleaning of the catch basin, you're looking at it quarterly and removing the sediment when it's 50% full, so that's correct. But the catch basin is one here and one here. I think he wasn't, or misunderstanding, this is a stormwater basin out in the back, not a catch basin, and the operation and maintenance plan for the catch basin and stormwater basin are different, and there are all in there. As far as mosquitoes, this basin is designed to fully drain in accordance with DEP stormwater management standards. It'll drain less than 72 hours. I believe it'll drain about 8 to 10, if I remember correctly. So there would be no mosquito issues with that. So the thing that jumped out at me as I was trying to listen and take some mental notes. So.
I can send you a copy as well.
That would be great if you could send it there so we have it for our files.
All right, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on behalf of the citizens? Second time? And third and final time, anyone in the audience? Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
I have one question or comment. Anthony, I know we briefly discussed this, but the other roads, Mary Ave, Penny Lane, and Bill, those aren't accepted streets, correct?
Correct. Well, that was the other thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah, I know, everybody talked about it.
So one of the points that was made regarding the maintenance, and so what is typical with a subdivision is that the intent at the end of the subdivision would be to petition the city to have the roads accepted as city roads and streets. With that, any of the public utilities would be part of that acceptance. Water main, drainage system, and sewer system if you have a combined sewer system. In this case, we don't. We have 3 individual sewer connections, so the city would never take those over. They're not a combined common system. So that's why in the stormwater management report, we had mentioned that the city of Leominster, as we stand with the subdivision, we would ultimately take over that stormwater system. In conversation, I do expect it to probably come out through some of the planning discussion, because we have to go to planning board for a subdivision. Some of the comments that were made is that all these streets, even though they're public ways and people pass and repass, and there are homes all the way out on Mary Ave, Penny Lane, and Bella Villa, they're actually still considered private ways. The city has never accepted these roads as public streets. The city does still plow them, as they do all streets, as a safety issue for emergency vehicles and everything. You can provide that for the citizens of the city, but these aren't accepted. So what may end up happening is, and it should come up during planning, is that the likelihood of this being accepted may not be high because these are not accepted. Typically, a city will not accept a road down the road along a private road. You'd have a break where it'd be private, public, technically. The city may not, in the end up taking this over. So that would be something that would need to be worked out. Homeowners association, or if the developer or property owner were to retain the ownership of the road, they'll be responsible for that. And that may tie into discussion with the 2.5 acres of open space as well. So we do expect some comments to be coming, some written comments to be coming from the DPW and through planning, specific to that, to bring that discussion to the front as well.
So my comment on that would be, because of our discussion, we know it's likely that it won't be accepted, and you will have to have a homeowner association.
Yeah, so I think that some mechanism will, if we get to the point where we have an approval, I think that could definitely be a condition or a further discussion on how we want to address the operation and maintenance of the stormwater system specifically. Yeah, that makes sense, absolutely.
I was going to suggest that the commission require proof of financial backings for the homeowner association, because it is very costly for 3 families to maintain these storm drainage, and in the end, it'll either end up an enforcement issue if there's sediment going into the wetlands, and I wouldn't want that to happen. And I know it's becoming a problem throughout the city where a lot of homeowner associations are unable to take care of it.
I'd like to speak briefly on homeowners associations. Unlike condo associations, for instance, we don't have a lot of teeth in doing enforcement and making sure that they comply with the regulations when we have a homeowners association. There's nothing that even requires that they remain in existence, for instance. So our recourse is always with the property owner. So if you have a condo association, for instance, typically you have all those unit owners, they all own a percentage of the property. You're dealing with one parcel or a couple of parcels in common ownership, something like that, where everybody owns a percentage of the property. So if you're issuing an enforcement order to, for instance, a condo site, you're dealing with their condo association, but you're really dealing with all the property owners because they all own a piece of that pie. Subdivision site, and I've asked town councils in the past about, giving up public maintenance of utilities, keeping it private, things of that nature. The advice I've always gotten is no, it's tough to enforce. There's no requirement to really make sure that those associations remain in existence. And what happens if you get a few homes and they don't want to put the money into it or whatever? It's just not really feasible from all the discussions I've had about it over the years. So any subdivision that comes through, that if we're hearing that the city's not going to accept the drainage utilities, the easements, or the roadway, for instance, I'd want to hear how that's going to be maintained, but that's going to have to boil down to the property owner. And I'd have to look, at least in my mind, I'd have to look closely at who owns the road, who owns the piping, and who owns the detention ponds. Any component of the system, really. Associations, I just don't think that's the great route to go, especially trying to permit it and expecting that that's going to be in place in perpetuity. I think it's an enforcement nightmare when you look at an association like that for a subdivision. Anyone else have any questions or comments on this? I have one unrelated to this project, but it was brought in front of us tonight. So, as you mentioned, you've had some water problems on your property, and you're at number 9, correct? Okay. The plan we saw tonight showed that your particular lot, at least historic plans we saw, looked like completely wetland, and now there's a house that's fairly new and sitting there. That would have required coming to this commission for approval to build that. For some reason, that wasn't done. I think that we're probably going to want to look a little bit closer as to how that happened, and look into the regulations and see what else may need to be done there. I'm going to suggest that our agent do that between now and next meeting. While you're the property owner, I would also recommend that, whether you choose to come back to the next meeting for this particular hearing, if it gets continued tonight, I think you should still be here just for that discussion.
Yep, most definitely.
Okay, thank you.
What's next steps from my standpoint, or other than coming to the meeting?
I would just say come to the meeting. I mean, at this point, we're just starting to see. All of this is new to us tonight.
Okay.
None of us knew that clear, if we had known that somebody was building a house in a wetland, I think the commission would have done something about it before. But it's all being presented to us tonight through historical plans, and I think we heard that nobody went to the commission. There was no sign off for the building permit from the
Yeah.
commission, correct? Yeah. So it's a little bit unusual that you see a house that's, as new as yours, that was built in the middle of an area that was completely wet. And from your description of the problems you've had, that's certainly understandable, seeing the plans that we've seen. So I think that we're gonna wanna look into that a little bit further and, discuss options and have a conversation with you at some point.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate the further investigation, because obviously it's still a continuing issue from a brand new house, brand new lot, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks. All right, so I think you've heard our concerns. Do you want to continue this, or what do you would you like to do at this point?
Please request for a continuance to the next meeting, and see what we can do before then, and then, if there's still some more time, I can ask for a continuance prior to the meeting, if that's okay.
Sure. Yep. Okay, so this will be continued to our next meeting on April 9th.
Thank you very much for your time, appreciate it. If you want to keep those plans, feel free. If you don't, I can always repurpose them. So. Thanks very much for your time.
What do we like to hear?
Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I didn't actually open the next one. Do you want me to just read that?
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Okay.
Good point.
Before you head out of here.
That's right, yeah, good point.
All right, so pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended. There will be a public hearing to consider a notice of intent for James Aris for the construction of a 3-lot residential subdivision with associated roadway utilities. The eastern portion of the project is within the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. Address 1157R, map 419, lot 23. Someone here representing the applicant?
Yeah. My name is Anthony Cleves with Winnebago Associates, representing the applicant and the owner. As was just discussed, so to let you know what we did there, typically we try and do when we have subdivisions that also have lots that are part of filing with buffer zone and wetlands, we try and separate those so you have two distinct orders of conditions, so one doesn't cover the other. So as we just had a lengthy discussion, the subdivision, that lot 3 would be tied to that discussion. We would ask for a continuance on that as well to kind of go in hand with the subdivision discussion. So it's lot 3, which is that lot that we talked about, where there is an area that more investigation would like to have where the house is and the cul-de-sac and everything. I can bring the plan back up though. Oh, that's okay.
I think we all have.
So it's lot 3 is the one that's just behind the abutter's house, number 9 and 11 Penny Lane.
It's
Yeah,
this one right here.
exactly, yeah. So this is a lot that we also filed, because the buffer zone pretty much covers that entire lot. So we filed for that as well. Yeah, so it's this, there's a buffer zone, it's this lot here, is what that is. So as they kind of go hand in hand, the discussion will probably overlap. So we just ask for a continuation on that as well.
Any objections to that? So that will be continued to our next meeting on April 9th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Okay, that concludes our hearings. So we'll move on to the regular meeting. And first item under certificates of compliance, we have DEP file number 199-1062, 567 Pierce Street. Any updates on that?
No, I'm scheduled to go out for a routine site visit after all the snow melts tomorrow, actually, so I'll update this.
Okay, so we'll continue that to the next agenda. Next one is DEP file number 199-1028, 42 Sheldon Hill Drive.
I haven't had any communication. I did send out a letter requesting that basement fields for stabilizing the area before the certificate of compliance will be issued, but I haven't heard anything back from the property owner or from. So that will be continued until I haven't gotten the certified receipt either, so I haven't gotten it here, but.
Okay. So we will continue that till April 9th as well. Next up, we have extension permits, and I'm gonna mention, there's a bunch of here that are for the same site, so I'll lump all these together. We have DEP file numbers 199-1018, -1019, -1020, -1021, -1022, -1023, and -1024. These are for the Roche Ave roadway, Lot 3A Roche Ave, Lot 7, Lot 8, Lot 9, Lot 10A, and Lot 12A Roche Ave. And I know we've had some discussion at previous meetings on that. Is anyone here representing the applicant for this project?
Yes, sir. For the record, Chris Anderson with Handy Engineering. So at the last hearing, we reviewed the floodplain compensation, and it was found that it was deficient in one of the elevations. When you do take a further look into the calculations, there's one elevation area that was short by 17 cubic feet. A little history on this. Way back in 2016, this was noted, but under that current commission, it was deemed de minimis because of the net increase in the lower elevations, that the loss in the upper elevations was rendered mute. We understand that, probably should have been taken care of at that point in time, but 2020 hindsight, here we are now. As such, we did take a second look at it. We are able to provide the excess compensation that's required by simply shifting the grading contour 2 feet. It's very minimal. I did provide Angela copies of our floodplain compensation calcs. I do have copies here. You can review them tonight if the commission would like. It's a relatively innocuous change, and it should also be noted that prior to even receiving a certificate of compliance from the commission, we had to provide floodplain compensation calcs anyway for what's actually been performed on the site. The site's also subject to the floodplain special permit district under the zoning ordinance. So again, that has to be reviewed prior to being accepted by the city. So there's several hoops, for lack of a better term, we have to jump through before anything gets approved. So we would request that in addition to this extension permits, that the additional plans be included with the recording so that it is on record, that we can make it work with a minor change. And as I said before, prior to getting any closeouts of these permits, these flood kites have to be confirmed. So with that being said, if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
You have those here this evening?
Yes, sir.
When did you submit those, Trey?
This afternoon.
So you haven't had a chance to look at them yet either, right?
Not
Okay.
really, briefly, but.
Okay. Has anybody else looked at this yet that's here? Okay. I know from my perspective, having just submitted that today and not seeing it yet,
absolutely.
I'd rather have some time to look at it and review it and probably take, action next meeting on it.
Okay. What's the next meeting by chance?
April 9th.
Does that make sense to everyone, or is anyone prepared to vote on this tonight?
Absolutely. Yeah, so just to reference ourselves, the mass majority of the floodplain comp was in a certain area in the back portion of the property. It was as simple as moving the 475 contour 2 feet. If they were to do it in the field, it'd be a bucket width being moved. So,
Could you mind just rehashing, in terms of additional permits, what you have right now?
Yep.
What is needed for this?
we still have to go, the special permit for the floodplain work has expired, just due to funding purposes and various other projects by the applicant. So that is being heard before the planning board on the 1st of April. We are still going back and forth regarding the special permit relative to the open space development. It's our stance that because this plan has been recorded, that the open space permit has been satisfied. The remaining portions of the open space permit are relative to zoning requirements, such as you can only have single-family homes, you have X number of feet for setbacks and everything like that. So the permit for open space has, in our opinion, been satisfactorily completed. There's interpretation from the planning department that it might be different. We're letting people smarter than I, lawyers, deal with it at this point in time. So that's that. Mass DOT has extended our permits for their access onto the state highway system, so that's all set. And a subdivision permit doesn't expire. So right now it's essentially getting an extension so we can complete the work with the commission and doing the floodplain compensation or floodplain review with the planning board.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else?
Chris, so you did receive the communication from the plan whether they're requiring you to file for the open space? Because I do have that.
Yes,
in
and
here.
that
Okay,
is
that is
where the lawyers come into
All
play.
right.
So. So I think my permit's still valid till I think April 16th or something. Somewhere, somewhere,
Either 16.
yeah, somewhere in the teen range. So.
So the ninth would be before that.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. Provide you those. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have, again, we have another similar group here. We have 3 extension permit requests. One is for DEP file 199-960, Lot 1, Jocelyn Street, -961, Lot 2, Jocelyn Street, and these have the same file number, Angela, is it?
I believe that's an error. It is, for lot 1, it's 199960. For lot 2, it's 199-962. And for lot 4, it's 199-961.
Okay, thanks. So we have those 3 before us this evening. Do we have plans for those, by any chance?
Only plans I have are these ones. That one has lot 3, lot 1, and lot 2 on it.
Is anyone here for these extension requests? Yeah, sure. Do you mind stating your name, Bill?
Rodney Grace. I'm here representing Ollie Turbo.
Okay.
I live at 368 Pierce, which is right next to all these lots.
This is lot 1, lot 2.
Okay. And would you mind just giving us a history? What's the status of these? Where are you at? Why are you requesting the extension permits?
Where, if I can look at one of them plans, this is on, yeah, this is Joslin here, and this is Pierce Street, right here.
This is the one that's expired.
Ollie owned all this land, bought all this land from Paul Harris. And then this comes in here, like, Pierce comes in the corner here. And my driveway's right there, 368. I bought a piece of land off Ollie and built my house there. This house has existed, it's been there forever. That's on the corner of Joslin and Pierce. Then we have this lot, and then there's another lot right
It's on this plan over here.
right there. We already have water and sewer brought to these. And then this, the water and sewer, when I brought it to my house, it's on a pump system, and it was also brought to this lot also. We're really not, at this time, not doing anything with them, but we're just trying to keep the permits active because if you don't and something changes down the road, they become useless lots or something.
And if I'm looking at the agenda correctly, one of these expired last year.
Yeah, something happened on that, I forget, it was some type of date or something, which is, because we submitted the whole thing together for 2215, and then lot 3 and 4, something about a 4-year and a 3-year. And then on 815, lot 2 expired for some, let me see if I can remember why. Here. Explanation says lot 1 and 2 were approved on August 15th. This fell within the qualifying period of the Permit Extension Act, which automatically extends valid orders permits for 4 additional years. Explanation for lot 4, this order was approved in September 2012, which was after the Permit Extension Act qualifying period. The commission did issue the extension for an additional 3 years. So that's just kind of confused why, because we submitted them all the same.
If I'm familiar with the Permanent Extension Act, so essentially, if I may say so, you hit the lottery with the tolling period, because the lots 1 and 2, the permits were issued the very last day of that tolling period. So if you had gotten your permit the next day, that would have expired close to 3 years ago.
Exactly.
So the Permanent Extension Act did you a favor to this point. Lot 4 was not within that tolling period, so that's why it's expired at this point. So this is actually I think the date may be incorrect here, because there were 2 permit extension acts, actually. The most recent one, the tolling period ended August 15, 2012, but there was one before that. So lot 4 may have been in that initial one and giving you some extension. I don't think it was to this 2018 date, but it could have been. But in any event, if the order was issued 9/11/2012, that's okay. So no, you're beyond that first one as well. So I don't know why this expiration date is incorrect. Oh, further down, we've got the extension permit for 3 years, and you did say that, and I apologize. Yep. Okay, so that gives you 2018.
No, I was on, because like here's the initial, like we submitted it on 4/22 for all of them.
But the permit will only be extended from the date it was issued. It wouldn't be extended to the day you submitted it.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Have you seen these sites at all, Angela?
I've driven by them. I haven't gone on the property. Doesn't look like there's.
Looks undisturbed.
Yeah.
Nothing's happened there yet,
No.
other than you said you brought in utilities at this point, right?
I cut a lot of grass there.
Okay.
Well,
Takes me 8 hours to cut that grass. It's my life all summer long. But no, we haven't. Like I said, on my lot coming down next to the house on the corner of Joslyn and Pierce, yes, we ran the sewer line down there, and the water and sewer line down there.
You looked at these plans at all, or?
a little. It was pretty hard to just try and figure out which lot was which, because the files weren't correctly labeled. They were all
I'm just
police.
trying to figure out our jurisdiction on lot 2. I see a buffer zone from a wetland to the west of the house on lot 1. I'm wondering if it's just for some minimal grading that's on the lot, or
I
if
think
it's.
there wasn't many notes on it. I think it was the minimal grading.
Has anybody seen these? Wanna look at them?
I looked at them quickly.
What is? These lots are different.
This is lot 4. This lot 1 and 2, well, I think it's just because this isn't showing the full. They do look a little bit different, but I think we're not seeing a property line.
What lot do you have
That
this?
stone wall is part of it, I mean, that's part of the property line there, the stone wall. It's,
So it'd be 3.
I'm
So
wondering if
this is
this
supposed
is,
to be, that's labeled as lot 1 and this is labeled as lot 1, but they look different.
one of these is the wrong site, because this is Johnson Street. So this is on the north side of the road, this is on the south side of the road. So,
Yeah, this is Johnson, right here.
So this is 1 and 2.
this is the oldest building. 2009. So that was probably not even.
That way, is that what we're looking
No, because if you look, here's the north arrow, here's the north arrow.
Yeah.
So where it's,
It's turned
for? Yeah.
kind of like
what's,
this way.
you have the.
Pittman and Wingham for you.
Well, it might just be us making sure we have the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
So I have these
probably has
labeled
nothing to do with
lots,
them. So that's lot 2, and then the other one's lot. So this,
I don't know which, because the order's not here. After we do the order. it's-
well, the order should reference the
This
plan,
one,
it
yeah.
should be with a date. And
Let's see.
So that, or the north arrow is not correct, one or the other. Where is, oh, Pierce Street isn't showing here.
Well, I'm speculating that these are the right plans, because that's it was filed right after that. And this is a 2009 plan.
Yeah.
And those lot lines don't look the same as that.
What is it, I built my house in 15, so these
Yeah,
plant,
these are
that's,
the same. It's just this one's outlined on here and lot 2's outlined on this one.
Did you find the orders, just out of curiosity?
I'm looking.
Okay.
For some reason, there was 7 copies of the same
Sounds-
order.
yeah, So these two plans,
They're the same, it's just outlining lot 1 on here and lot 2 on here is what it looks like to me, but it's outlined in this on that one. Lot 2. So this pen,
this is water and sewer equipment's plan, so it doesn't even go to those certified out here. I don't see any resource areas on those plans.
but this doesn't, I don't know why that one's in the file.
This one references septic and sewer plan from 2012.
5/22/2012, do we have that plan? Is that this here? What's this?
May, yes.
5/22/2000, so that's different than all of these. So now we're seeing the resource areas behind the house, okay.
Sorry about that.
Yep, so I think that that plan there is not this project. So we just need the one for lot 1 there too.
Lot 1.
Yep.
No, but I'm sure it's the one revised.
is that, Paul?
Lot one.
Lot 1. Shows lot 1, 2, and 3.
They would submit a different plan on January 1st.
You want to see this?
Is this yours or? our
Oh,
copy?
yeah,
Okay,
please.
I'll give that back to you, thank you.
That was this one? Yeah.
Oh, this is, you see lot 4 on this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the one that you're looking for, 2012.
It's closer, but I don't think this is the one that you referenced in the, was referenced in the order.
The one that's referenced in the order was final revision date, January 4th, 2012.
Well, this is after that. And when was the NOI filed, just out of curiosity?
When was that NOI filed? July 9th, 2012?
Yeah, I'm guessing there's a typo in that.
Okay.
And that this is probably the plan of record. Do you want to see these two plans? And you said you want to extend them at this point. You're not really planning on constructing right away, correct?
No.
So you're looking for 3 years on these?
Yeah.
Let's do these again.
I'm good. I'll pass it on, so.
Paul, they're all yours.
You have to have good office supplies. My T-Rex sticky notes.
They just found one today.
Hey.
In Canada, one of the biggest ones.
Oh, I saw that article
found.
pop up on my phone. I haven't read it, but I saw that headline today.
I forget how many tons it weighed. It was incredible.
It was huge.
There's 4. Am I not seeing 4?
Is where the you, Brad?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it in there.
And then there's these
Keep the random ones.
color plans. Get all mixed up.
Oh, these are the January 4th ones.
Okay. Sorry, you go.
That's okay.
Yeah, that was done just for utilities.
Yeah.
The DPW, it doesn't show the resource or anything. I think the wrong plan was just referenced in the
Yeah, I
order.
think we mentioned it.
This is on May 22nd.
Everyone seen what they need to on those? Okay. So, I mean, you've got, the way I read it, you've got 2 that are still current and 1's expired. And there's really nothing we can do about the expired one.
We were asking for your forgiveness and begging us.
Yeah, the regs are pretty explicit on an expired before, so there's nothing we can do on that. And then the ones that are current, it's just a matter of, do we think it's okay to extend them at this point? So, and so you've got lot 1 and lot 2 that are still current. Does anybody want to make any motion on those?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we issue an extension permit for lots 1 and 2 for the requested 3-year time period.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? I want to add one quick thing, just on the extension permit, that we reference the correct plan, which is the
I'm
May
checking
22nd one, please.
that right now.
Thank you. Okay. All those in favor? Okay. So you've got the extensions on lot 1 and lot 2.
Can't buddy you guys up with Kit Kats to get the other one split in. So I gotta refile for that one.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. Good.
What's that?
So,
Okay. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. You guys have a great night, huh?
You too.
Thank you, you too.
I have a question. We should have asked before. Who built that house on the wetland? Was it the same guy trying to build that subdivision?
Do you know that answer?
Yes, Harbor Classic Homes built that house. You're referring to 9/11.
Yeah, one of the guys saying he had
Yeah,
water in
that
his
was built
basement.
by Harbor Classic Homes. It was not owned by Mr. Zaris, as far as I can tell, looking at the tax
Oh,
records.
so it isn't the same guy that's trying to do a subdivision right now?
As far as I can tell, no, I don't know if he owns Harbor Classics or if he has an affiliation, but I don't believe so.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting. Normally that don't get slid through this town like that. And it was interesting to hear that. So, awesome. Thank you. Have a great
Thank you.
night.
Me too.
And Liz, slide that basket down.
oh yeah, I think I need to sugar this. Sam, he's just
Thank you.
hogging all the sugar over there.
The whole one.
What happened to the spicy
That's
stuff?
why he's so smiling down
I
there.
got jalapeno M&Ms for
She's
you in
done
the
torturing
office.
us.
Then I have to speed this up a
Mini
little bit.
millionaires.
All right. Since there's good candy out there, I'm gonna have to move this along. So communications.
Oh my god.
I've begun my rounds of site inspections of all the sites that are currently open. The list is currently 600 open DEP sites. A lot of them are older and either have filed COCs or have not, so I've been working on weeding out which ones are and which ones aren't. I visited 35 Day Street, and I've contacted the homeowners about their erosion controls. I've just been making the rounds.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have meeting minutes. So we have minutes from November 13th
Yes,
and minutes from December 12th.
yes.
And we really need to start taking action on this.
So, if I'm correct, the new members can read the minutes and watch those meetings and vote on them. They just can't make the motion or second the motion.
I would concur with that.
So I'll send you guys, if you guys don't mind, those documents.
And then the ones from February 26th.
They would have,
It's just Sam and I here at that meeting, right?
yeah,
Okay.
so I have to have
We'll have to
Liz.
put that one on the next one too.
Okay.
Let's see if we can wrap those up at the next meeting.
I don't think Sam was even at that meeting, right? I think he's doing
Oh, he was-
appointed until March 12th.
March, and it's
Rico.
wrong date, okay.
With Amanda Hanson.
So it's just me, so we can't do anything.
Nope.
Or maybe you were here for that one, yes, I think you were here for that one. You missed the
You
last
were
one.
here for
right?
that one, so Liz doesn't need to.
Okay. New business, discussion of changing the deadline.
Yes, so when projects come into my office that need to have legal ads posted, for example, an NOI, their deadline is, I get maybe a day and a half to review the whole filing or review, make sure their fees are correct and go through and make sure they have everything. I have a day and a half before I have to issue the legal ad, which I have to have in by noon on Friday. And I've noticed that others, I'm sure you know Brad from your town, that other cities and towns technically have 3 weeks to review it before it, or 21 days total. I only have a day and a half to review it, so I was thinking maybe we should change the deadline for projects coming in, so there's more time to catch errors in filing or errors in lot numbers.
Is it currently 2 weeks? Is it a 2 week?
So, for example, tomorrow's the deadline. I'm sorry, Thursday at noon is the deadline currently for the projects for the April 9th meeting, but I have to have the legal ads out by Friday at noon, or else they won't run them.
Right, so it's, okay.
So I basically have a day and a half to make sure, and that doesn't include my normal, because I'm sure you guys, I do site visits, I have meetings I have to go do. I have bills to pay, running around City Hall.
You said the deadline's Thursday at noon?
Thursday at
We have to
noon,
have the ad by Friday at noon.
Yes.
So that's not even a day and a half, that's a day.
True, it is a late.
Yeah.
I work
Yeah.
at night too.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's,
You can slip it, huh?
So there's less than a 2 week. They have to, so filings are not even in 2 weeks before a meeting?
11 days.
It's less than 2 weeks?
11 days typically, unless we have one of those weird months where there's 5 weeks, sometimes it's a little bit longer, but that doesn't happen often.
Yeah, that's, I don't know, in my experience, that's pretty typical. It's usually at least 2 weeks, like, you know, to the day.
That's-
Partly because of that reason.
I think it definitely makes sense to extend just for the sake of punctuation, just to.
Or if I'm out sick
And your
or something.
sanity.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of hard.
You have some
And your
breathing room,
sanity.
So,
I always thought it seemed a little, like,
that's
rushed.
another thing is that a lot of, you know, our engineering firms and contractors have been doing this for,
well, yeah.
so I don't know how.
Not only do you literally have 24 hours, you also have people giving you incomplete applications at times, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then you're on the phone or they're in your office, you're trying to sort through that. And that's, you don't have time for that in that short amount of time span. I think you should get them a week in advance personally.
Do you guys want to vote on that? Add the additional 5 days, you can post online?
If you have to have the ad into the paper by a Friday at noon, I would say you should have that application by the end of the day that previous Friday. And that really shouldn't bother the people that are used to doing business here for a year or years or however long. It's only going to impact them that first time,
Yeah.
really.
Okay.
Beyond that, the schedule's just going to go. Do we have a annual calendar type schedule that shows the meeting dates and the filing deadlines, or have you ever done something like that?
I have one for myself personally that I keep in my agenda, my folder that I reference to make sure everything's going along.
Okay.
But I've been working on making it digital and putting it online.
It might be worth doing one at least till the end of the calendar year. We know our meeting schedule in advance. It's always the second and fourth Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is there any events that would trip those dates to a different?
Nope, I don't think Christmas this year falls on that. I don't have my planner in front of me, but I don't think Christmas. I think the only one that would tripped it up this past year was Christmas was on Tuesday.
Okay.
So everything comes.
Yeah, I mean, that might be worth doing something like that in the future. It doesn't have to be for our next meeting, but if we could do a schedule of our meetings and what the filing deadlines are, that's often helpful for consultants. They can just look at that on the website and know when they need to get things in by.
It can even just be like a PDF that you can post, I've seen, where it's literally, it's just a table and it says, you know, it literally just says the filing deadline and the time, and then next to it, it says the meeting date. It's like a very, very, very simple, but really easy to see.
I can do that.
All right. So next we have old business, Newsnaut Brook wall collapse.
Our grant administrator is still looking for grants to fund this. We're looking at some MVP programming and a couple other ones that we're trying to see if anything can fall into it, but right now it's a very costly fix.
Now, we heard last month, or last meeting, was it last meeting? When Ms. Weeks.
Maybe 2 meetings ago.
Ms. Weeks was in here. So they're just starting the MVP process.
We're just starting
So
it,
they're
so
not
it's-
gonna be grant eligible for a while,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
But we're trying to find, it's kind of hard to find a grant for, unfortunately, that amount of money.
What was the estimate on that again?
I believe it was 1.7 million.
If you're looking to fix the event that just happened, I mean, the budget could be much, much smaller than that. I think that number sounds like we're
That was
looking at the
repairing
whole
the whole
site,
wall
right?
because it's impacting and it's starting to kind of erode. So if they wanted to fix just that one area, I believe it was 256,000 for just that one area, or to do compensatory flood storage, which even then they wouldn't be able to get the correct compensatory flood storage due to where the parking lots are, and where the elevations are. They would have to do some pretty steep rearranging in there from what the plan said. I can ask them to I can ask DPW, have the consultant re-look at it, but
Whereabouts on the brook is this, is it the black?
so, the wall right out there,
Right.
where the new walkway is?
Yep.
It's across from the new walkway.
Okay.
There's a little parking lot and road there through the road.
Okay.
Monument, maybe?
So it's right behind Wilson
Right.
Bank.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
right behind the bank, so and the city doesn't own that parking lot, so we'd have to shut it down, obviously, to get any sort of machinery in there, which would be another issue that we're facing, because
They don't own the parking lot near the wall collapse?
from my conversation with DPW, they don't own that part. We'd have to use the banking's parking lot as well and shut them down. Well, not shut them down, but take their parking, which obviously downtown's already pretty limited.
Wilson Bank?
I think it's Rollstone Bank right there. I don't.
The bigger one, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
okay.
anywhere right by Ryan Time and
Yeah,
one
yeah,
if you
yeah.
have.
There's that little, yeah.
Goes behind LCU, I think. That's who we should go to.
I think that's
Just a suggestion. Nice to have you back, isn't it?
it is. Whenever they cigarette in the field, we can start terrorizing it.
So, I mean, I'm looking at the aerial that shows where the wall collapsed and the parcel covering that whole area is showing the city of Leominster. Man and a half. This red outlines the parcel. And this is GIS,
That's
so
GIS,
it's approximate, but still it's, unless those GIS lines shift a lot. Can you just, do they have a set of conceptual plans for that?
Yeah.
Can you just check that and verify
Yeah.
who owns the parcel? Yeah. But that's, I mean, there's the riprap for the wall collapse and the repair they dug. The red is the parcel outline, so there's, can you see the riprap, Paul? It's kind of
Yeah.
dark, it's
Yeah.
right there.
Been down there more than once.
Yeah. You see it? Oh, the computer's gonna move on you a lot, so,
Right.
but, there. Any other comments on this one, or?
Working on it.
Guidance documents.
Did anyone have any comments on them before I post them?
We want to give some time for any members to look at them.
Okay. I'll let you guys know.
I anxious to get those up there.
I did post the certificate of compliance one because people kept coming to the office when I was out on site visits asking how to do it, so I did post that at the building department for them to tell them how to file a certificate for request for certificate of compliance. Sorry,
Okay.
it's very simple though.
Enforcement, 723 Wood Street.
I haven't had any update from the homeowner or Mr. Lane from KP Law. He was supposed to have the draft letter to me by this meeting, so I'll give him a call tomorrow morning. And the homeowner does have the verbal agreement was to be at the end of April to have it all taken out. So he was able to start the remediation.
134 Crawford Street.
I haven't received any updates on this at this time from Mr. Morrow. I haven't seen any of the survey plans or been contacted by the MBTA.
Lot 12-2 Royal Oaks Way.
I went out there the other day. Their erosion controls are in good standards. I've been in communication with Marianne DePinto. She'll be out of the state for a couple days, so I'm just taking over supervising the site if we have a large rainfall. I'm working with the project manager if he needs to be told that he needs to put more of a wrap in.
All right, emergency certifications.
None at this time.
Project update requests the Gardner Spot Conservation Plan.
Yes, I believe Mr. Morrow wanted to be here for a discussion on it. He's left. He wanted to discuss because he wanted us to have an opinion and work with him on the plan.
Okay. Have you looked at that
I
yet?
haven't seen it, no.
Okay, and you probably haven't seen it yet,
Mm-mm.
Why don't we, I'll try to,
Yeah, I've been trying to read it.
Is it an email?
It's on the Google Docs.
All right. When do we get that deal?
we got it the day of the last meeting.
The day of the
so
last
2
meeting,
weeks
yeah.
ago
It's
today.
been a while.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago today, I think we got it. Or did we get it the meeting before?
That was the day of the last meeting.
Yeah, last week, yeah.
And it's a draft.
Yes.
Yes. March 11th, or at least that's when I got the email.
So
Yeah.
we're supposed to have the finished plan in November.
Yes, I believe you're out, Paul. The woman who's writing is very ill and had to have emergency surgery. And I actually spoke to some people at a conference who work with her and said that,
I remember.
yeah,
Right.
unfortunately, they all kind of fell behind and they
The
had to skip.
government shutdown also affected her.
Yeah, I believe that's what he said.
Yeah.
Right, because she's a federal employee.
Yeah, so there was some, unfortunately, some hurdles that they had to go through.
But why is it a draft? Why isn't it the final plan?
Maybe
Just
they'll
where
come
it
with
is.
comments before they
Yeah.
I
finalize
think
it.
so, he really wanted us to have, he's made it very clear that he wanted to be here and have a conversation with us tonight, so
I forgot.
maybe he forgot.
So we'll,
What is that for? Just for me, I don't even. What is it for actually?
So the Gardner Spot is over on Granite Street. It's a farm slash shop that sells plants.
Okay.
It's right on,
It's right near the high school.
it's right near the high school.
It's not Exchange Street, right?
No, it's not Exchange Street.
It's not granite.
But
Granite
he had come into my
yeah.
office, he had wanted to put in a catch basin that dumped into the river right there. Me and Paul went down to the site and he was already putting it in. And there were some issues just with other practices on the farm. I can go over the file with you.
Okay, no, I'll look at it. I just wanted to look at
Yeah.
it.
And there was like debate of whether or not it was agriculturally exempt or not, so.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, budget.
Budget. If anyone would like to view it. For some reason, when I was pulling the wetland budget fund, it kept pulling the wetland budget fund for, when we established it, it wouldn't pull just the yearly, and it was gonna be 35 pages long, so I didn't print it out. Sorry. I I would go talk to David LaPlante about it and figure out why it's pulling the entire account instead of just the year. But from looking at it, it looks like the money was deposited back into the account.
For the office furniture?
Yes.
Is there a clear showing of that somewhere? Or?
It says the amount of money. It's just kind of confusing looking at it because there's like a list of withdrawals that match, I think match former withdrawals from when they were taking money out back in 2008 and 2007.
That transfer would have had to happen in the past month anyway, right?
Because
Unless-
they're not dated. Or there's no reference numbers. It just shows the number. It was a messed up report. I'm not saying it was right, so I need to go talk to David before I can pull the full report.
Is the total here 53,053?
Is that my salary?
Inspectors.
Yes, that's my salary.
Oh.
Okay, it's public record. I think it's public record.
We have a charitable trust at one time.
Do it because I love it.
God.
Are you selling both ones? Actually, I have my notes on the change your address. Yeah, no, I just have a note to do it so we can. When you get your. I believe I put payment in your, payment information packet out for you too. Harper's payroll.
Wait, no?
That's it, yep.
Is this, oh,
Did
okay.
you have one, Sue?
Oh,
Okay,
that's
thank
why
you.
this was
There you go.
there? Okay, but,
So you guys get paid twice a year, so if you guys fill that out, I'll be able to,
hey, cool. Didn't know that was a thing.
and only in Lancaster.
Very cool.
Budget stuff, so- okay, well, everybody's still looking at the budget. The next meeting item, we still have the old deadline on here, correct?
We do. No,
Tuesday, next meeting, Tuesday, April 9th, Thursday, March 28th, that's,
So that still
Yeah,
gives
oh, yeah,
you,
sorry, I
that
just-
still gives you 24 hours to.
it's fine for now. I didn't change it, sorry.
This week.
Okay, so the next one you'll change, okay?
Yes, next one I'll change.
All right, that's fine.
I thought you were saying I left that like March 26th deadline,
No, I just,
March 14th, and I was like, oh my god,
you have 24 hours again, to do your ads, that's all.
it's fine.
Your last week of doing that.
I live off coffee.
Cold brew.
3% of this extension purpose.
Yes, I was waiting for the meeting quotes.
All right, so we've done the budget. Next meeting is Tuesday, April 9th, 2019, with a filing deadline of Thursday, March 28th at noon time. Does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we put an end to this meeting.
Second.
Those in favor? Great, we adjourn.